Right, first of all, thanks for coming along. I'm just going to start by sort of introducing myself a bit more. So I'm Shaun, and I'm currently a lecturer in sport and exercise science at Abertay University. So I did my undergraduate degree at what is now the University of Bedfordshire in sport and exercise science. And then went on and did my master's degree at Loughborough University in exercise physiology. And in 2011, I finished my PhD at Edinburgh University in physiology as well. And during my PhD, I spent about 3 years researching sort of the effects of carbohydrate supplementation, and I'll explain what that term is in a little while, in young athletes, so adolescent athletes. So I'm sort of quite well versed to talk about this kind of topic, both from a positive and perhaps a slightly more negative perspective. And that's what I'm going to try and do tonight, basically, is give a more of a sort of perhaps a balanced overview of the topic of using sports drinks in different settings, different people, reinforce some of the positives behind them, but also have a look a bit more about perhaps some of the negatives that people should be aware of. Okay, so that's essentially what we're going to sort of cover for tonight. I've got a limited time. I'm going to talk for probably about half an hour or so, something like that. So I can only talk about so much. But as was mentioned, there'll be time to go through anything more afterwards, or questions that you might have. So we'll have a bit of time for that. It's quite difficult to know what level to sort of pitch a talk like this, because obviously you're a different crowd than I'm used to talking to. You probably all come here for slightly different reasons, and maybe some slightly different levels of background knowledge on the topic. So I'm going to keep it quite general. And it's going to be very much a lay talk. It's not going to be a scientific lecture. Okay, so if you have any questions that are perhaps slightly more scientific, we can address those in the questions, but this will be quite a general conversation almost, just to sort of try and engage as many of you as I can, hopefully. Okay? So, this is very weird, by the way. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. It's very odd. Right, so first of all, I just want to set the scene a little bit and make sure that we're all talking or thinking about the right thing when we're talking about this topic of sports drinks, okay? And first of all, I want to make sure that we're all comfortable and aware of what sports drinks actually are. So this is the only time I'm going to refer to a slide today, because it's meant to be just a talk. But when we mention sports drinks and when we're discussing sports drinks, these are what we're talking about. So the common brands that you will see on a day-to-day basis, things like Lucozade Sport, things like Gatorade, Powerade, etc. Okay, these are sports drinks in the way that we talk about them when we're talking about them in a research setting or an academic setting. Okay, these are not sports drinks, things like Monster and whatever one's called Relentless or whatever. These are energy drinks. Okay, sports drinks and energy drinks are sometimes interchanged like they're the same thing, but they're not. Okay. Energy drinks don't really contain that much energy. They contain stimulants, for want of a better phrase. Lots of caffeine, lots of other substances that are designed to stimulate your nervous system, make you feel more awake, make you feel more alert. Okay. They don't give you energy as such. They make you feel more energized. So we're not talking about those today. We're just going to focus on the actual sports drinks themselves. Okay, which are these ones here. All right. So that is what we're talking about, because these drinks do contain some ingredients that can actually supply your body with a source of energy during exercise. All right. And that's one of the things I'm going to be talking about throughout the talk today. So when we're talking about these sports drinks, it's important to maybe have an understanding actually of what they do contain, what their ingredients actually are. Okay, so we'll run through it very quickly. They're water, basically, largely. All right. They have some sweeteners in them, of course, to make them taste nice, maybe you want to drink them. They also contain smallish amounts of things called electrolytes, things like sodium, or in other words, salt. Okay? And these electrolytes are quite important for the way our body functions. So salt, for example, or sodium, plays quite an important role in balancing water distribution in our body, okay, making sure there's an appropriate amount of water inside and outside of our cells so that our cells can function properly. Sodium is also very important for conducting nerve signals, okay? So in other words, signals that come from our brain, from our spine, all the way down into our muscles, for example, and that enable our muscles to contract. Sodium is very important for that, and among a lot of other different things. So there's a theory that if we deplete, if our body loses too much sodium, which it can do through excessive sweating during exercise, for example, that our body can start to dysfunction slightly during exercise, in which case we need to get a source of sodium into our body while we're exercising to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay? Now, I'm not going to touch on sodium in too much detail today, but I will address it very briefly as we go on. But that's one potential ingredient of a sports drink that could potentially be beneficial for exercise performance. That's mainly what we will talk about. But the other ingredient, and the primary ingredient that we're going to discuss today really, is sports drinks are composed of carbohydrates, or they contain carbohydrates. Okay? And as I'm sure we're all aware, carbohydrates are fundamentally sugar. All right? There are many different types of carbohydrate, many different forms of sugar, many of which are natural and occur in the foods that we eat, and many that we can get into our body through other sort of supplements, okay, such as sports drinks. So sports drinks are composed mainly of a carbohydrate called glucose, which is the body's most important source of carbohydrate, if you like. It's the only source of carbohydrate that the body can actually use to generate energy. Okay? Any other form of carbohydrate that the body takes in has to be converted to glucose first before it can be used for energy. So that's the main ingredient in a sports drink that is thought to be beneficial, okay, during exercise. It's the supply of glucose, which the body can use as an energy source during exercise. This isn't really part of the talk as such, but it's quite interesting to note actually. I suppose, a bottle of Lucozade Sport, if you're going to buy it in the shop, is probably about £1.20, something like that. You can make your own. They're quite simple in terms of their composition. You can make your own in your kitchen. All you need is a little bit of flavouring. You need a little bit of kitchen salt. You need a little bit of glucose powder that you can buy from any chemist. And you can make your own sports drink for you can probably make a litre for about 10 pence, okay? Just with ingredients that you've got in your kitchen. That is essentially what these products are, okay? They're just water, glucose, sugar, and a little bit of flavouring in the right amounts. That's basically all they are. Right, so they're nothing particularly massively scientific. They're quite a simple product.